anytime you need to make changes to a model that is referenced, you can't actually change the model from within the reference itself. You physically need to open up a separate copy of the model by importing it into your into a scene or into a workspace, modifying it, and then re-exporting it. So assume that anytime you're working with a reference model, a white loaded reference model, you cannot edit the geometry. You can't do anything to manipulate the character unless you want to use some of the attributes of delta, which we'll get to in a moment. But for the most part, you're really not editing the reference model itself. So if I needed to, say for example, add topology to my character, this wouldn't be something that I would store in a delta file. In fact, if we actually try it, switch the context of my layers here. If I actually tried to go in and drop in some new geo, you can actually see if I try to add an edge loop, I get an error down at the bottom of my screen that I can open up in the script editor. That's object in reference models cannot be modified. So that's that. So the next model that I'm going to apply to my referenced hierarchy here would likely be the advanced model. So if I click on my Mulcore reference model, I can add another level to it. I'll browse for a new reference model, so I'll add in a resolution first. This resolution will be the medium res, representing the advanced rig. So if I click on that resolution and browse for my path, I'll actually use the advanced rig right here. Where is it? Advanced rig model 2. Okay, so I can switch to that resolution, and we get our Mulcore character with more detail. Of course, if I'm in textured mode, I can see all the different textures that have been applied to the character. Switch back down to the low res. And we get the basically the same character. So the next one I'm going to add in as a resolution is the cloth scenes. I've got two levels of them, one with the low res and one with the medium res character. So I can call this one low res cloth, and I'll add in one last resolution. So let me actually just point to that resolution. So I've got my cloth rig model, and then my final resolution, of course, is the medium res cloth. I'll browse the selected path there and hook up the cloth advanced rig model. So now I've got four separate models being referenced through a single model node. I can port this reference model around by exporting it. So I can bring a model in at any time that references four separate models. And the way that you would do this to be able to kind of utilize this setup would be to take your reference model and store it in a model. So I'll call this the reference model parent. You can then take that reference model and export it. So again, usually with model nodes, I'll actually just hide the model node so it doesn't show up as any kind of an icon in my graph. But now I can take that reference model and export it. So I'll actually call it Mulcore reference model parent. I'll export that model, and now anytime I want, if I clear my scene, I can import a model, and if I activate the models folder and check by modified date, I can bring in the reference model parent, and by bringing this into my scene, I also bring in the reference model, and that reference model is still pointing to the various model files. If you have a look, I can switch over here. So I'm starting on the lowest resolution level. Switch to the medium res. So we get our poly count back, and I have this in a textured view. I'll switch to the low res cloth. So we have our character there, and the medium res with cloth as well. Again, same character, just slightly more detailed. So I've got my 4 levels now, and it's just a matter of choosing which model I want to work with. You'll notice that on this character here, I'm still lacking a lot of things like textures. So this is where tools like Delta come into play, being able to overwrite shaders and things of that sort. So the basis for working with reference models has been set up, and I'll be adding a couple more resolutions as we layer in a couple more effects on this character rig.